Hi, welcome to Mom's Kitchen. It's dinner with Mom, and I just mean just Mom, only we're not cooking. We're going to talk about one of the questions that the kids ask me a lot. Mom, how do I freeze stuff? What do I freeze? What can't go in the freezer? Because, we make these great dinners, and maybe we don't always eat them. We got some leftovers. Maybe we're tired of it. Can we put it in the freezer? And if we do put it in the freezer, how long can it live in there? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So first we're going to talk about what we can freeze. So we can freeze cakes. If you make a cake, this is frosted or unfrosted. You want to wrap it up real tight in plastic wrap once it's completely cooled. And then you want to wrap it with aluminum foil. So plastic wrap and aluminum foil. And then you want to put it in the freezer and it can live in there for quite a while. Baked goods like muffins, cookies, brownies, stuff like that. Same deal. Cool completely. Wrap it in plastic wrap and aluminum foil and put it in the freezer. No worries. You can do things like tomato sauce, like pasta sauce. You can do it with meatballs or sausage. That can go in the freezer. That's no problem. Nuts, and this is important, nuts you almost always want to keep in the freezer if you're not going to eat them right away, because nuts can go rancid really quick. So, and then you can use them straight out of the freezer if you're going to bake with them or even snack on them. It's a perfect place. Herbs, putting herbs just by themselves in the freezer, not a great idea. But if you can put them in olive oil, a little bit of olive oil, put them in an ice cube tray, then you can freeze that. It's awesome. You can do the same thing with a little bit of wine that's left. I personally never do have leftover wine, but if you do, you can freeze it in ice cube trays and then you can use it in a sauce, whatever. That's good. Non-dairy casseroles. Casseroles are a great thing to freeze. You can freeze them before you cook them. You can freeze them after you cook them. If you freeze them before you cook them, you want to just get it to that place where it's getting ready to go in the oven. Plastic wrap and aluminum foil, real tight, put it in the freezer, and it will keep in there for quite a while. Then all you have to do when you're done, maybe you made 2 casseroles on a Sunday, and in a month or so you're like, wow, that was really good, I want another one. You pull it out of the freezer, put it in the refrigerator overnight, let it defrost, and then you want to cook it uncovered in the oven at 350 for an hour. That's a casserole. Dairy casseroles with sour cream of soup, stuff like that, they don't freeze very well. Chili, non-dairy soups, flour, chicken stock, beef stock, whatever you got, fruit, that kind of stuff freezes excellently. Grapes especially are good. Frozen grapes are like an awesome treat in the summertime. I keep my flour in the freezer just because it will stay fresh that way longer, although we go through it pretty quick. So that's an example of things that you can freeze, that freeze really well. Okay, so I want to show you real quick. Here's an example of how I would freeze something. We made Cuban sandwiches the other night on our Twitch stream. And I made black beans in the Instant Pot, and I have a whole bunch left. And everybody's getting tired of them. So I got some black beans. They're nice and kind of thick. We're going to pack them up in a super heavy duty zip top bag. Here's a handy trick when I'm by myself in the kitchen. I don't have an extra set of hands. If you flip the top out like that, it will help it to sort of no, it's not gonna work. Help it to stand. There we go. Stands up by itself. So we're gonna put our black beans in the zip top bag. There we go. And here's the trick that I like to do. I know you can't really see me here. I'll scooch back a little bit. There we go. Smush it flat. Try to get all the air out of the bottom of the bag like that. Squish it as flat as you can. Start to get it zip, but not all the way. And then I'll roll it to get all that air out. I do not have a fancy vacuum sealer. I don't really feel like I need it because this works. It does work, I promise. And then when I put it in the freezer, I put it in flat. And then once it's frozen, you can just stack all your little frozen whatever you got, pasta, tomato sauce, whatever you got. I'm going to mark this with the month and the year. I don't know how your freezer is, but I need that in my freezer. And then I'm just going to put on here what it is. It's black beans. Because you know what I mean. In the freezer, things don't always look like what they are. Black beans, 920. We're going to put that in the freezer. As much air as we can get out of it out. and keep it nice and flat. So that's how I freeze stuff. That's how I freeze chili, soup, any of that stuff. Okay, what can't we freeze? Let's talk about that. Don't freeze dairy. I mean, there's a real divided school of thought here. Lots of people say you can freeze milk, you can freeze cheese. I mean, if you really want to, if you found some milk for 99 cents a gallon on sale somewhere and you want to freeze it, more power to you. Here's what happens. It breaks. Like a sauce, it separates. It gets the water and the dairy, the milk part, it gets weird. Cheese dries out bad. I'll freeze Parmesan like an already dry cheese. That's okay. Sour cream, ricotta cheese, cottage cheese, all of that stuff, it gets really weird. I implore you not to freeze it. Any kind of a vegetable or fruit that is mostly water, cucumbers, celery, lettuce, cabbage, raw tomatoes, they do not freeze well. It just like explodes the cell walls. I'm not a scientist, but things get real strange in there when you freeze that stuff. Anything mayonnaise based, same as the dairy, it separates. It's not the same. It's gross. Jell-O, that's weird. I don't know if you guys just for fun you should try it, but I wouldn't eat it. What else? Anything fried, because when the grease freezes and things, the breading will fall right off. It's gross. What else? Anything carbonated, that should probably go without saying. Have you ever put a soda pop or something in the freezer and forgot about it? Yeah, that's a bad idea. Potatoes, frozen potatoes, that's fine. Although I would say mashed potatoes get a little mealy in there. Baked potatoes, yeah, it's just a compromise of texture a little bit. Raw potatoes, don't do that. That's a bad idea. They'll never be the same. Jelly gets very strange in the freezer. I don't know what's going on in there. It's not good. If you have an unopened can of beans, sauerkraut, I don't know what you got, don't put it in the freezer. Open it, put it in a Ziploc bag, and then put it in the freezer. That's just craziness. Here's what happens if you put something in the freezer and forget about it. We did a YouTube video earlier today of Dad defrosting our garage freezer. He found this. It doesn't, it looks like a bag of strawberries. It's totally like pressurized. Yeah, I think something happened where maybe this got defrosted. Anyway, when that happens, that means whatever's in there is putting off gas, and that's generally not a good thing. So if this happens to you in your freezer, you get something that's like super pressurized like that, throw it away. Don't eat that. That's not good eats. Okay, so how long are we going to keep things in the freezer? Let's do that. Meat. This would be raw meat. I suppose it could be cooked meat too. A year. That's why it's important that you want to date it. You want to keep it for a year. Veggies. This would be frozen veggies, like the stuff you can buy, or if you have fresh veggies that you've picked out of your garden or got from the farmer's market that is not any of the ones we've already talked about not to freeze, they're good for a year. Butter is one of the dairy things you can freeze, and it's good in the freezer for about 8 months. Juice, this is something interesting. When I freeze juice, I freeze it in a Ziploc bag just like I did with the beans. And, make sure you try to get as much air out as you can so it doesn't get all, crystalline freezer burned. But you can freeze juice for up to 6 months. Bread, if you wrap it up right with the plastic wrap and the foil, it'll live in there for 6 months. Ice cream, everybody thinks ice cream lives in the freezer forever. It doesn't. 4 months and things go bad quick. It's sad, but who has ice cream that long in the, not me. Cake, we froze our cake earlier. We're going to keep that in the freezer for no longer than 6 months. If it's a wedding cake and you want to keep it for your 1 year anniversary, I'll give you that. But I would not make a habit of that. Any kind of soups or sauces without dairy, you can keep in there for 3 months. And cookie dough, you can also keep for 3 months. So cookie dough, you want to make your cookie dough, get it all the way to the point where you're going to bake it. I forgot this earlier. And then you want to put it on a sheet pan and put it in the freezer just uncovered. And once it's frozen solid, then you can just toss them in a container or Ziploc or whatever you got. And it will live in there for 3 months. Okay, so that's what we can freeze, what we really shouldn't be freezing, and how long we can keep things in the freezer. All right, so that's Dinner with Mom. You're in Mom's kitchen, although we didn't cook stuff. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, put put it in the comments below. I'd be happy to get back to you, and you guys have a great rest of your day.